Hello. I wanted to talk about a product I keep hearing advertised. It's called the Eden Pure Heater. For those of you who haven't heard the commercial, the manufacturer of this heater claims it can save you up to 50% on your heating bill. Now, I was really surprised to hear this claim because everything I've ever seen about electric heaters is their heat output is limited based on the amount of power going into them. In fact, I used to walk through Walmart and look at all the different heaters to see if there was any heater capable of putting out more heat than what seemed to be the standard 5,000 BTUs on the high setting. I realize you can buy a bigger heater that runs on 220 and do a little better, but for the most part, most of the heaters you buy, they're limited to around 5,000 BTUs for around 1,500 watts input power. Now, some of the heaters did have an advantage in that they tend to put out more radiant heat, so if you stood right in front of them, you'd feel the heat instantly. You'll find that with the radar style heaters and some of the heaters that don't utilize fans, but for the most part, the heaters that did have fans, they were just as effective as the Eden Pure, which cost around $400. Now, my neighbor happened to buy one of these heaters, and I actually ran a test on it. What I did was I hooked it up to a watt meter, happen to have a portable watt meter here, and I compared it to my little cube heater, which I think cost around $20, and what I found was that it used the same amount of power, and as far as its heat output, I tested that too. What I did was I put the heater in a room, held the thermometer a few feet away to make sure it wouldn't be affected by radiant heat, and I measured the time it took to raise the room temperature, and I couldn't find any difference between. Now, there was some nice things about the Eden Pure heater, and that the outside of the case stayed cool to the touch, so if you have children and you're worried about them getting burnt, it might be justified spending the money in a situation like that. On the other hand, when I read a lot of the reviews on the Eden Pure, I found an awful lot of people were complaining that the heaters didn't last all that long. So maybe they've ironed out some of the kinks on their later models, I don't know. But gosh, that's an awful lot of money. The other thing I was going to say was the commercials they had for the Eden Pure. I found one on YouTube where it actually shows an infrared camera taking pictures of the heat waves coming out of the Eden Pure, and they compare that to another electric heater, and the Eden Pure looked a whole lot better, but I didn't really think that was a fair representation because that heater they compared it to didn't appear to have a lot of air moving through it. It tended to be more of the radiant heat type. So in all fairness, I think that test needs to be redone. They need to compare it to one of these cheap little cube heaters. The other claim that Eden Pure made about their heater was that it produced a healthier air. I don't know if that's true or it isn't. I wouldn't know how to test healthier air. I guess about the only thing I could test is whether a conventional heater burns up the oxygen. But for what it's worth, that's my take on the Eden Pure. So I hope you find this information useful.